Welcome back to the 81st Goodwood members meeting, and we are getting ready for our next demonstration, really. So we get a little bit of a breather from the absolutely frantic racing action, and here we go. Can-Am. How'd you like that? Look at the different shapes, sizes, brands on offer. We are celebrating all things Can-Am from 1967 to 1974. That's the Canadian-American Challenge Cup, the sports car racing series. The Group 7 cars with the likes of Lola, McLaren, Chaparral, Ferrari, Alfa Romeo, Porsche, Shadow. And basically, Alice, in this category, anything went.
Basically, I mean, just look at these incredible stills, and there weren't really many restrictions on aerodynamics, on dimensions, and even the engines, and they could just produce anything. That's why we see a huge variety of types of body shapes, wheel size, engines. Just incredible, and I love, and if you haven't already grabbed a program, there are more incredible shots in the program of these incredible cars who will of course come round and line up on the grid, and the sound of them as well is just amazing.
I mean, some of these cars were absolute titans of the time, and we're just seeing, I mean, look, as you come into the break zone, the winglets that come out on that #1 car, the prototype that it couldn't quite get going yesterday, but so brilliant to see that out in full force with the #1 written on it. Look out for it as it comes by with Stephen Hepworth at the wheel. And then you'll just see the little slots on the front wing and the rear wing as well, which will hopefully open up if you didn't just spot them a few moments ago. But even the difference in winglets as well, and the huge wings you have on the back of some of these cars. I mean, the regulations were minimal and permitted unlimited engine sizes. There was turbocharged, supercharged, virtually unrestricted aerodynamics, and we're as close as any major international race series ever got to an anything goes policy. As long as the car had 2 seats, bodywork enclosing the wheels, and met basic safety standards, it was allowed. And that led to some absolutely amazing designs. I mean, we've got a couple of Lolas out there as well. They initially dominated, then McLaren came in. Look out for the orange Can-Am cars. They are the McLarens making their way round. And you have got the likes of Mario Andretti, Dan Gurney, Denny Holm, Phil Hill, Jackie Ickx, Bruce McLaren, John Surtees, all taking part back in the day in this fantastic championship, which sadly then, due to, well, it was almost too much of a good thing at one point, with Porsche coming in and absolutely dominating the series towards the end. Now have a look at this, the dollar signs popping up on that #1 Can-Am you can see coming through. Now that was designed initially to encourage sponsors. In fact, we've seen that in other racing series before. You stick a big sign logo on the side of your car, you know, your logo here, or this would be a good spot. Basically, the dollar signs to try and encourage some sponsorship money to come their way. But looking absolutely fantastic in that #1 chassis use from the 1970 Can-Am season, with iconic liveries involved in that as well, just making their way, dicing through and just listening as they come down the main straight. The epic noises, the epic colours. This is nostalgia to the max.
It certainly is, and I just find these cars so impressive to look at, Harry. You know, with the crazy aero designs, the enormous trumpets that are coming out from the engine bays. And as well as being extraordinary to listen to, and they were generally powered by the booming V8s. Often the Chevrolets were one of the favourite engines. Most of the cars did run the Chevrolet engines. Ford, you know, was in the back of the Lola and the McLarens, and they were just incredible. And you know, you've got the trio of radiators, for example, on the number 16 there, just going through shot on the rear wing. I mean, incredible designs and almost pioneering technology as well. It was among many of these cars, among the first race cars to use sports wings, and the effective turbocharging and ground effect aero, which of course we hear talked about in many categories as well. So just incredible. It's just the design, and I just think, you know, how these cars are back into the 1967 and 1974 era, but the technology and the design and the brain work that went into designing these cars.
It certainly is. Do really get a good close-up that we've seen it multiple times of that Shadow Mark 1 prototype. Marcus Pye at the wheel, and it's probably one of the most radical race cars designed in the 1970s. Really, the front tyres just 406 millimeters in diameter, the rear 480, and where you see those dollar signs that we were speaking about as it comes through the chicane now, a little bit of a lock-up, some smoke coming off the back. Those are basically the functional aero devices, the movable air brakes being deployed from the front and the rear bodywork as it peels off into the pits, coming to the brake, and then it immediately shuts down again, and making use of those dollar signs every time to try and encourage some sponsorship there. So just fantastic, innovative design, and that's actually the first time the car has appeared in the UK. First time it's run at speed publicly since 1969 in its original concept form. So absolutely fantastic to see that car on display as it managed to get away today and peels back into the pits.
Jake Hill there behind the wheel, who's just had to hop over from the previous race of the number 16, the trio, as I just mentioned, of the Radiators there, and they are just so impressive. And it's nice that they're being allowed to give full beans. Yesterday they were down there on the grid, but as Harry said, if you've not been into the paddock to look at these cars, it certainly is a must.
Yeah, Jake Hill driving the Shadow Mark 1, the orange Shadow Mark 1 that is out there at the moment.
Tom Kristensen behind the wheel there of another Shadow DN4B, black and orange coming into the final chicane.
So I mean, Shadow were a force to be reckoned with back in the day, and this is just some of the epic designs that came out. And he had the DN4B as well, entered by Jake. That's the one there with the number 0 being put out there. You also had the Mark 1 Motorsport car too. But I mean, some of the brands you had out there, I mentioned, dominated initially this series by Lola, then McLaren, then Porsche. Porsche withdrew at the end of 1973, and then Shadow ended up dominating the last season of Can-Am before it kind of then faded away and was replaced by Formula 5000. But we've never seen anything really of this ilk ever since, and never will again. I mean, the sheer amount of money that goes into funding this kind of operation, but you get some absolutely ridiculous designs out of it, and just the difference. I mean, we're expanding across 1967 to 1974 in this display, and Tom Kristensen really dragging the reel of that Shadow, and you just see all the different designs, the huge difference in wings, and some of them you almost think, how can that go around a racetrack?
I know, but it attracted incredible drivers like Graham Hill, John Surtees, Jackie Oliver, Mario Andretti as well. And I tell you what, you don't want to hear us talk on. Let's take a listen to these incredible Can-Am cars around a lap of this Goodwood circuit.
to hear these Can-Am cars making their way around this iconic Goodwood Motor Circuit. We're celebrating the Canadian-American Challenge Cup, to give it its full name. The years spanning 1967 and 1974. Lolas, McLarens, Ferraris, Alfa Romeos, Porsches, Shadows, all out there on track. Some of these big wing designs and really low steeped fronts, trying to encourage low drag, but sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't quite work, particularly in the case of one of the McLarens that we're just seeing in the background coming into shot with a really high steeped wing.
But it's nice to see the variety. I like this shot here. We've got the Porsche up behind Jake Hill, who is driving one of the first Shadows. The front of that car was so low. We do get a front-on shot. There we go. And Jake's just sticking his hand to let the Porsche go through. And that was designed for the low drag, but essentially it didn't end up working in the end. But just to see these cars go around and the variety of designs that some thought, you know what, we'll give this a go, maybe it will work, and others say no, we'll stick with the traditional design. But Porsche, they certainly did have a lot of success in this series.
Certainly did. Also got the likes of the McLaren, powered by big booming Chevrolet M6B out there, representing Garage 59, Chris Goodwin's outfit in the early 90s, touring car driver at the wheel. Also managed the likes of Bruno Senna, Ayrton Senna's nephew back in the day, making its way around. Actually bought that car while he was the chief test driver at McLaren back in 2015. Car being restored, now prepared by his Garage 59 team. That's the orange McLaren Chevrolet M6B from Garage 59. Chris Goodwin at the wheel of there, making its way through. There it is in the number 5. I mean, just looking at that dramatically different design from the car in front of it, suddenly that looks like more of a road-going car than any of the ones in front of it.
Yeah, it certainly does, with Chris Goodwin at the wheel there. But racing wasn't always, I'm guessing because of the vast designs here, wasn't particularly close fought. So each season you would often have a dominance of one team. So you'd see the Lola in 66, and then the McLaren, one of the McLarens that we've got there on screen at the moment, from 67 to 71, and then Porsche 72, 73, and then finally the Shadows back in 74. But they certainly did deliver some impressive designs.
They did. Also out there, the McLaren M8F, the orange McLaren out there. Jamie Thwaites at the wheel of that McLaren Chevrolet, last MAF built and shipped to the USA to challenge the mighty Can-Am Porsches. You're looking out for the number 8 orange McLaren for that one. Raced until 1973, fitted with a Chevy turbo, caught fire and then was badly damaged. That car remains, will then return to the UK. And another example of the restoration and the love and the passion that goes into bringing these cars back to life and being able to be witnessed by so many people, not those here trackside as well, but also wherever you are in the world watching this and getting to see these Can-Am cars in full flow. It's just a spectacle to behold. You don't see this anywhere else.
Well, exactly, only at Goodwood. And if you do get to come to the revival, there'll be obviously other demonstrations of incredible vehicles, but we've touched on it already and we'll say it again. If you've not gone down into the paddock to get close up and have a look and talk to the owners of the cars as well, then you must head out, you must do so. And Jackie Oliver's car there, being driven by Jackie Oliver, taking it around, must be so incredible, must give so many memories that must flood back from taking the car, from not just sitting in the seat, but being behind the wheel and going back around this circuit. Of course, it didn't race at this track, but he was out there yesterday in the car. But it's just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, that Jackie Oliver car, the Shadow DN4, 1974, that was the year when everything came together for Shadow in the Can-Am series. The new DN4, Tony Southgate designed it based upon their Formula One architecture and outfit. New fuel restrictions eliminated the Porsche power advantage of that car, and the drivers for that season were Jackie Oliver, giving us a wave, and joined by George Follmer It qualified on pole for every race and won all but the last one. At the final race then at Road America, he was leading Jackie Oliver. 4 laps remaining, and then the oil pump belt went kaput on him. But he did secure the championship in that very car, being reunited with it for the first time in 50 years. And we'll also, I think, get to see that again at the Festival of Speed later this year in July. So that's going to be one to really enjoy and look out for later on. But I think we saw the checkered flag, so it'll be one more lap around before they peel in. So feast your eyes and your ears on them while you can, as we are celebrating the Can-Am Championship through the years 1967 to 1974, and just the complete variety of aerodynamic designs and sheer power and grunts from so many different high powerful brands, with Lola, McLaren, even Ferrari were taking part, Alfa Romeo, Porsche, and of course the mighty Shadow, with a lot of shadows in the field actually, and a couple of drivers getting a nice shot of them. Timo Bernhard in there, Tom Kristensen as well. Can't resist getting into one of these.
I mean, I don't blame them. I'd happily hop in, and they could shift as well. They could reach up to speeds. The Shadow, the 1970 Shadow in particular, could reach up to speeds of 190 mile an hour. So for speeds back in that era of 67 to 74, I think that's a pretty handy speed.
It's all right, isn't it? It's pretty nifty as they make their way back round Jackie Oliver there with another wave as he comes into the chicane for the final time in his Shadow. A trio of Shadows making their way through. The number 0 Porsche, Tom Kristensen at the wheel, then the McLaren, the number 5 M8, the orange Shadow Mark 1 I should say, Jake Hill also in there at the wheel, and celebrating all things Can-Am. And just even looking at the trumpets on the back as well, just the uneven design of it almost doesn't feel like that would even be logical.